Kia ora tātou. Our next guest speaker is a New Zealand psychology academic, professor of human resource management. Today he'll be speaking about the importance of being a leader, well-being and psychological safety. He hails from Ngāti Maniapoto, Ngāti Mahuta. Please welcome Jarrod Haar.
Kia ora.
Kia ora mai.
E te rangatira.
Tutu, tu.
E te rangatira o Maniapoto, tēnei anoa mihi a auraki maunga ki tērā taupiri maunga a tainui waka. E Jarrod, ngā tino mihi ki a koe e te rangatira, tēnei te whāriki mō, kai a koe te wā. Tēnā koe.
Kia ora, everybody.
Kia ora!
Woohoo! Thank you for having me. It is my deepest regret I can't be there in person. I would have loved to be visiting your wonderful city today and tomorrow and the next day, and having a few extra days just soaking up the beautiful city. Unfortunately, Auckland just won't let anybody go, right? So, so I am here for, gosh, we're hoping we might get released by Christmas or something. So, kia ora, I hope you have a good day and hope everything goes. I hope the technology goes well. That's really my big fear.
Yes, it's going perfectly well.
All right, so this is what we're looking at. We're going to actually, let me go to the next slide first, because this will really, oh, look at the technology working from all the way up here in Tamaki Makaurau. So we've got two parts, well-being, specifically around burnout and avoiding burnout, and psychological safety. For both of these, we've kind of got the same four aspects: identification, why we should care, what causes it, how we can manage it. And I have some activities in between just to kind of break things up, get you thinking, get you talking to your tables at least. Now, our first thing is we have a poll there. Is that correct?
That is correct.
What sort of poll?
That is correct. So this is an individual poll on menti.com. If you can reach for your smart device, or if you're on a laptop, you can also use that. The poll is, what has been your strongest or most dominant feeling over the past few months? And this is going to make what we call a word cloud. So you type in your own emotion. The code is 14 17 80 31, just as yesterday. So you type in that code. You don't need to put in any names. This is anonymous. And when you're ready and you think of your strongest emotion, you can just type it in. All good? Are we in? Looks like it's working for us, Jarrod, so far.
Boys.
And we're going to see our word cloud appear.
Frustration, motivation.
Oh, I like it in real time. It's pretty cool, isn't it?
It's very cool. You can add in up to 3 emotions.
We're complex beings.
Very
Only
complex
3.
beings, absolutely. That's the amazing thing about humans, is we can hold positive, negative emotions all at one go. Oh, we got some beautiful words coming through here.
Wow.
Inspiration, suspense, frustrated.
Relief.
This is a bit quick for me.
Excitement.
Enough coffee.
Yeah, the largest ones are where people have, quite a few people have used those words.
Hope, responsible, settled.
Challenge, acceptance.
Trapped in our bubble.
Yep, I think that might have come
Ka
from
aroha.
Taumariki.
Aye.
Like, what?
Doubt, togetherness, unsure, fear, calm, multitude.
Wow.
Jarrod can see this, yes?
Yep.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? It's
And the online guys can also see it and participate as well. So I think we're going to call it there. You can stop adding, although I'm sure you got lots of emotions. Jarrod, what's standing out for
Optimism.
you? There might be a few more movements as people.
Yeah,
press
I think
enter.
the important thing we should be taking here is that there's a mixture of positives and negatives, right? We have excitement and pride and challenge, and something like challenge can go both ways. But then we have other things like and anxiety, inspire. We've got uncertainty, anxiety, frustration, overwhelmed. Yeah, anxious, anxiety. So that's similar things. So that's you know, that's a very useful place to start us off, right? Just to give us a headspace. You know, and I've been doing research on burnout, which we'll get into in a second, for the last, well, for literally since May last year, since we first came out of the first lockdown. So, you know, these kind of emotions are very, very common. You know, it's a good sign that we don't have just an overwhelming negativity, anxiety, overwork, overburdened, etc. There's some positive aspects in there as well, but we should be understand. And I realize you guys are not all in Christchurch. You're physically, most of you in Christchurch now, but fundamentally, no matter where we are in the country, we've all been relatively locked down together. And in some respects, it might be even, you know, especially frustrating in the South Island, where your last case of COVID-19 was, you know, 300 plus days ago, where mine was about 3 minutes ago or something up here in Auckland. So, all right. Hey, very, very good.
Right, we're back onto the slides.
We're back onto the slides.
Yeah.
So we're looking at well-being here. There are lots of different ways to look at well-being. That's a fair point to say. So I'm looking at job burnout, mainly because it's kind of one of these paramount outcomes to look at. Definition: work-related state of exhaustion that occurs amongst employees, managers, yourselves, characterized by extreme tiredness, reduced ability to regulate cognitive and emotional processes, and mental distancing. So here's those four kind of aspects there. So exhaustion, so it's a loss of both physical and mental energy. And a good indicator for burnout is if you wake up in the morning and you're already exhausted. So after you're supposed to have had a recharging sleep, if you wake up exhausted, that's a good indication that you've got something serious going on. Mental distance is when we're not, you know, we don't have any love for our job. Psychologically, we're distanced from our work. We just kind of wonder what it's all about. Why should we bother? Emotional impairment, intense emotional reactions, and feeling overwhelmed by one's emotions, typically in the workplace, right? And I've heard, for example, a Christchurch nurse on the radio talk about driving her car to the hospital because there was no hospital parking. I think that's how the conversation started. And then having a good cry for 10 minutes before getting up and going to work. And I remember thinking, gosh, that's not a good sign. And the last one there is cognitive impairment. So this is when we've got memory problems, attention, concentration deficits. We really just can't cognitively perform. Now, one of the important things for burnout is there's a lot of people saying, oh, I'm burnt out. You know, it's become a very catch-all phrase, and I don't think necessarily in a good way. Those are the kind of four things we should be looking at. If you are extremely tired, but you don't, you know, and you think your job's still great and you don't have emotional problems and you're not forgetting things largely, you're not burnt out, you're just exhausted. The good news with being exhausted is you can just rest and recover. And you should say to your manager or HR, you know, hey, I think I need a couple of weeks off, right? I just need to recharge. If you're burnt out, the reason we should care, if you've got all four of those things, you know, it can take months to recover. 2 to 3 months would be quite natural. So it's a serious level of exhaustion beyond just being tired, right? You've got these other mental aspects going on. pushes the button, and just like magic, it moves. So there's 3 ways to think about these things. The green zone is our normal level, low to modest levels of burnout risk. The orange level is when we're getting a kind of higher risk level. My personal feeling for this one is I call it smoldering, and we'll come back to this one in a little bit. And the red zone is the severest form of job burnout, and here you're at the at the high burnt out risk. And I've kind of made this up as my little template here. So most of us, ideally we would be in the lightly toasted zone. This is a natural place to be. I'm a little bit cooked from work. The next slide in, the smoldering one. So now we're a little bit in a danger zone, right? So if you think about those 4 aspects, all 4 of them are starting to push along and occur more frequently. And the ultimate end point there is the burnt toast. And my catchphrase here is you don't want to be burnt toast. And so this is your burnt out stage. So Teresa Gatting is a good example, high level manager. She said she was in one meeting and she was, so she was having physical problems, thought, oh, instead of going home, I'll go to my next meeting, walked to the meeting, walked in the meeting room, collapsed, woke up in hospital, was diagnosed as being burnt out, and spent 3 months recovering in a very nice, fancy place in Auckland. So something to be avoided. That's something we should all be thinking about, right? Now, what I want you to do, where's my, there it is. Okay, in your tables, I just want you to talk to somebody nearby, just one person. You don't need to share these things broadly. Just a chance to think about yourself. And what I want you to think about here is we're not trying to, not necessarily trying to identify anything, but if you do end up being high on all of these things, it is worth talking to your HR or even your GP and say, actually, I think I might actually be smoldering a little bit here or getting a bit burnt out. So I want you to rate yourself. Physical and mental exhaustion, mental distance. Do you kind of doubt the significance of what you're doing? Emotional impairment, can you control your emotions? Cognitive impairment, is your brain functioning? And I want you to score them on those 1 to 4 things. 3 would be, yep, I think I'm in that red zone. I'm really crisp or excessively feeling those things. Orange is more close to slightly smoldering, and then green would be, no, I think that's just fine. Then total your score, which should be somewhere between a 3 to a 12. Share it with somebody nearby, and then at the table level, can we just kind of identify our most common factor and then maybe the least common factor, and then we can kind of share those back out to everybody. So you've got kind of 5 minutes to crack into that. Hazel, you got the timer going there, please?
We can definitely put a timer on. These people love working to time.
Yeah, that's good. Kia ora, everybody. Thank you for engaging. Well done there. It's great to see the camera. The camera's kind of panning around the room, so it's very helpful for me just to see you all thinking. Do we have any 12s in the room?
I beg your pardon? Any who?
Any 12s? Did anybody score a 12 on a table?
12. Wow. I think they're under the table. So
the reality is, so I've been following the burnout levels across Aotearoa since May last year. May was about 11%, so 1 in 10. 1 in 10, so maybe 1 every 2 tables would reflect the workplace. But as we've gone through the year, December was about 18%, and this year in April was about 20%. So 1 in 5 would be in that kind of burnt out zone. Now, if nobody there is burnt out, hallelujah, that's the greatest thing ever. But and if you scored a 10, 11, 12 and you're sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, I don't want to admit that, That's totally fine. But I do want you to think about what that means maybe at the end of this session while you're having lunch. Just think, wow, actually, God, according to that guy, I got lots going on that I need to think about, right? Did anybody, how many people scored a 3, sorry, a 4 right at the bottom? Anybody?
We've got lots of hands up. 1,
Well,
2,
that's
3,
good.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Got about 1%, or 10 people in the room. So out of 100.
So
What's
10%?
10%. My maths is not my strong suit.
You did well.
10%.
Oh. Is that beeping me or you?
We can't hear anything. It's fine.
Oh, sorry, that must be in my, you know what? I put
Everything
one of those
beeps at us these days.
I put one of those timers on in my thing, and when it went off, I thought it must have been in your room. So I was just sitting there looking at you guys going, I'm waiting for those technicians to turn that off.
It does feel like you're in the room. It does.
That's good. Hey, so I'm hoping to bring the slides back on there.
Yep.
Okay, so why should we care about those in that kind of 9, 10, 11, 12 in that kind of zone? So people with high burnout are less productive. And if you think about it, if you're mentally exhausted and you're physically exhausted, and you don't want to really kind of wondering why you're doing your job, and you can't control your emotions, and those kind of cognitive areas are starting to slip, you are going to be less productive. You'll be sick more often. Surprise, surprise, you won't get much enjoyment out of your job. You think of the Great Resignation. I've just done some research on that last week, and we're looking at about kind of 2 and 5 are at least in a kind of high level group of thinking about leaving their job. Burnt out people 5 times more likely to leave their job. Probably incorrectly, probably think, oh, the job's just terrible and I'll go and do something else. And then probably go and do exactly the same things just in another organization. But this is, if you think about the loss of institutional knowledge and expertise, and in this current market, the challenge of finding a good replacement. So turnover is an important aspect. If you're burnt out, your levels of, your chances of experiencing high levels of job depression, psychological complaints, physical complaints are somewhere between 10 to 20 times more than non-burnt out workers. 20 times. So if you're burnt out, you're going to have all those kind of other problems going on with you. So this is clearly one of these reasons. So there's the productivity side of things, which is obviously important for the organization, but your own mental health is an important thing to think about. Surprise, surprise, you're also going to be less happy. Now, why are we particularly interested in managers and leaders like yourself? Push me little button, and I'm waiting for the signal to hit. There we go. It's still quite amazing though, isn't it? I'm controlling that technology from Auckland. So leaders to followers. So, I understand most of you are in a leadership role here. If you have subordinates, you have people working under you, we kind of call those followers. The picture here is the kind of classical way to think of things. If your leader's in a bad mood, typically you get in a bad mood, right? Or if your boss is grumpy and yelling and screaming, we all tend to be quiet and and maybe not hide under our desks, but we certainly wish we could hide under our desks. So the leader is able to affect their followers. Now, this is fine if the leader's in a good mood. A smiley, happy leader is more likely to make workers happy, but a smoldering leader is more likely to cross that emotion, those kind of effects over to their followers. So as leaders, I'm just reminding the audience here that as a leader, you are, not only are you responsible for your subordinates or your followers as the boss, but they will pick up on your state of mind in a good way, but also in a bad way. So if you're a smoldering leader, you're much more likely to have smoldering followers. So when you think about, well, I can't take time out of my, my busy management role to go and look after my well-being, my advice here is to remind you that actually it's vital you do, because your followers will pick up what you're giving. The academic term is contagion. So it's literally like they will catch what you're giving. Not so much in the COVID world, just more in a kind of moods and dispositional type of way. So if you're burnt out and you're emotional and you're yelling and screaming, much more likely to affect your subordinates the same way. So a useful thing to contextualize why we should care about it. Okay, we have a table poll. So here are the 10 items. I think Hazel will probably come to my rescue here. You're to select one factor for you around that burnout list. So some of them are positive. I've got the positive in the bracket. Some are, most of them are negative. We do a table poll and then share and discuss those with your table. And again, I'm going to give you kind of 5 minutes to look at that.
Okay.
Cool.
Aye.
Cool. Go.
Have a look at the list of 1 to 10, read through that and see what resonates for you, and then share and discuss at your table. Which one of those stand out the most for you?
So we're just going to get, I'm just going to go through those 10 points. If number one workload issue is you, can you just put your hand up? Hazel's going to kind of make a tally up, and then hopefully from the room and the online room, we can get to a kind of a score across those factors.
I'll need a bit of help with that.
From the whole room. So workload issues, number one, how many people see that as their kind of number one factor around work, your work experience?
Put your hands a little higher. We got about 14 that I can see.
14, cool.
Yep, I can see from this side.
What about long work hours?
Got 2.
Choice.
What?
Arms up, people. Arms straight up. No halfway. No halfway. Half high arms.
I will put my hand down.
Okay, what about a lack of autonomy or control in your job, in your role?
Ah, there we go. We got about 8, 9.
What about good support from your team? So this is the kind of positive work factor. Actually, I get lots of good support.
Heaps of hands.
Oh,
30.
Yeah, about
Wow.
30.
cool. Job insecurity. So people wondering about the long-term.
Mike Boyle. The CEO who's leaving us in December has put his hand up.
I heard it was your decision.
No, on a more serious note. Anyone
So-
choose number 5?
So just one person then for job insecurity? Is that?
I'm not counting the online guys because I can't see them at the moment. All good.
So was there any hands for that?
Carl.
No, Carl.
No. Kia ora.
Oh,
And kia ora, Mike. I know Mike. Work-life balance challenges around work and family and life. See a few hands.
15, 16.
Woo.
I've got about 20.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
There were a
we're
few
going
behind you
15,
there,
16 to
Teach.
20, 25, 4, 25, 25, got 30. 30, going into 30, 35, 35.
Got an
35.
auction going.
What about whānau support? So this is a positive way. I get lots of support from family. It's my number one kind of factor going on.
Hazel's eyes are better than mine, so.
We're on about 20 as well.
Wow, cool. Challenges working with different personalities, not yourself, but people in your team.
If
Really?
your head's not up, you're the problem.
We've got about 9 there.
9, cool.
Hey, if your head's not up, I don't know. I think I'm awesome. So do I.
Now, workplace loneliness, any issues like that, don't be afraid if that is you. Do put your hand up.
Steve Fraser's like, I want to put my hand up, but I don't want to.
We've got one from Takapō.
Yeah, Takapō, we got some
Oh,
people.
two. We've got two from Takapō.
Oh,
Working in
Oh, the mighty Mackenzie.
we got you, Takapō. We got you, Dark Skies Project. We got you. We got you. Here's more road trips. Yeah.
The
The
sky's
last
We're all coming.
The last one is around using technology and to do your work, but in home time, so after hours.
I guarantee you, everyone in the All Blacks experience is putting their hand up.
3 or 4.
We
So
just scored
where
you.
the hands? Sorry, can I see the hands again?
Yep.
It's about 3
Yeah.
or 4.
Yeah, 3 or 4. And ABEX, an online crew, I couldn't quite see at the same time. We couldn't pull it up, but I'm sure we appreciate some of your challenges. If you want to put them in the poll, we'll have a look in your chat. We'll have a look shortly.
Yep, lovely. Hey, that's very helpful. I guess there's some interesting ones there, and that there's some good team support, good family whānau support. So those are positives. Workload issues. So now I'm going to go through kind of the list of things that are typical, both I guess broadly speaking, but I'm also going to refer to some of the results from my New Zealand research, because this is quite useful. So common things here: workload, work pressures, work speed. So anything in black is bad. More autonomy and more control are good effects. So those things that, if you're able to control how you do things, when you do them, the order that they get done, those are more beneficial for your well-being, less likely to be involved in job burnout. Long work hours, which didn't actually feature much here, which is, if there's someone from HR in Ngāi Tahu there, congratulations. 55 hours a week. Your chances, now I'm not trying to be bad, I'm not trying to be, sound a warning here, but your chances of dying early from a heart attack are about 17% more than everybody else. If you're working long hours, your chances of being burnt out are 4 times the risk. That's New Zealand data, if you're working long work hours. So that's something to be aware of. We had nobody on job insecurity. That's fabulous, especially you must be looking after the tourism components well. Congratulations. 6 times the risk of burnout if someone's got high job insecurity. So that is something to avoid. The interesting thing with job insecurity, and I'm talking to you now as managers of your subordinates, your followers, your employees, job insecurity doesn't have to be real. I just have to perceive that I think I might lose my job, and people can get massively affected by it. So it is something that if you have people in your team talking about, oh, I hear we might be losing some jobs, that's something you can definitely communicate and kind of squish those rumors, assuming they're not right. So any type of support though, social support from your perceptions around the organization, that's 4 times less likely to be burnt out. Whānau support, co-worker support, those are all good things, which might account for why we had no 12s, or we had so many 3s, 4s at the low level there. So those are some of the causes there. Here's a few more, and this one's important, obviously, for the organization, for the audience. Manager positions. As a manager, you're at twice the risk of being burnt out than your employees, than your followers. Now, part of that's just to do with the fact that you are managing more aspects. And if you think about the current COVID crisis time, you're managing in this crazy environment and the great unknown. And of course, as a manager, your workers now start looking to you for insight and knowledge, and you have to pretend that you know what's going to happen. Oh yes, I'm sure we're going out of lockdown soon. Yes, you'll be able to go to Auckland to visit your whānau for Christmas. And let's be honest, nobody knows, right? But as a manager, you get to wear that kind of mantle of responsibility. Loneliness. So 4 times the risk of being burnt out. Now, workplace loneliness doesn't mean you work on your own, but if you were working down on the bottom in a dungeon with nobody else around, that would be lonely. You can be in a team, but you have no real kind of close connections there. So as a leader, that's something you might want to look at fostering in your own teams. The tethering, that's that picture in the middle, being using your kind of smartphone, your internet to do work in family time. That's another kind of killer. 4 times the risk of becoming burnt out. And remember, if you become burnt out, your mental health risks are 10 to 20 times higher than everybody else who isn't burnt out. So you should be thinking at the end of this session, I don't want to get into that burnt out zone, right? And conflicts, if you're struggling to balance work and family or family and work, that's 5 times the risk. So the personalities, most personality aspects are beneficial rather than detrimental. I'm just so when we talk about all those different personalities you're managing, that might actually, that'll in various ways, I know that might be a challenge as a manager, but for your workers, for example, that might be beneficial. Okay, moving on to some solutions. So ideally, right? Okay, so what's the workload? And I'm looking at 14, so those long hours, the, you know, if you do long hours, count your hours. And you want to kind of make 55 hours that kind of red line you don't want to cross over, because it's, I mean, it's bad for burnout, but it's bad for your, you know, your body full stop. Now, 55 hours 1 week is different from 55 hours a week, you know, every week of the year. It's the consistency of long work hours that's dangerous. I'm sure Hazel and her team have been working 55 hours to get the show up and running and perfect. And then hopefully they'll get some time to relax afterwards. But it's the consistency that's the dangerous. So disconnect. We live these things, right? I was on breakfast the other morning, and like this, I was zooming into the breakfast, the TV show Breakfast. They go to an ad break, and there was 4 people on the team there. They all picked up their phones. This was at like 8:15 in the morning. And they were all doing things. And I was just like, you guys are only live for 3 hours. And you know, this is the way we are now, right? We're so connected. You go home and it's so easy to get an email or those kind of things. It's worth learning to disconnect, especially in the family time. One other thing to think about, if you're secretly between us, if your score is in that 9 to 12 zone, you need to be following these solutions. That includes more me time, more self-care, whatever that might be, a massage, a walk, going to the gym, socializing with friends, socializing with other leaders if you want to keep yourself distanced from your team, for example. But engaging with your team is good things as well. Say no. When I was asked to come to Christchurch for the night out, I was like, yeah! Oh, now it's all online.
Auntie Jacinda said no.
I wish I was there. But that's all right. I mean, this is, you know, some things we can't avoid, right? And we have no control over lockdown. But if somebody emails me now and says, could you do this thing? I'm going like, no, I don't want to go to a conference online because it's just too much. Yeah, it's a challenge for someone like me who might do 10 of these things a year. Now I pushed the arrow. Is it going? Here we go. Foster support with your team, with your own leader in your own organization. And I guess one of the important things is to look out for each other, look out for fellow leaders, right? You may spend a lot of your time looking down at your workers. Spend some time looking at your fellow workers. If you come across Jarrod in the corner having a little cry before the meeting, you should be thinking, geez, that's not normal. I haven't seen him act this way, you know.
Unlucky.
Afterwards, take him aside, buy him a coffee.
We've got a Jarrod who's sitting there in the corner, actually in the corner of the conference, just going, what? What? Lonely?
Not that Jarrod. Not that, this Jarrod. I was meaning this
loneliness.
So, you know, look out for your workmates, look out for your fellow leaders, call out smoldering. So you know, if you say to somebody, I think you're burnt out, I think you're going to get, you know, they're mentally going to hit you one, right? They're going to be like, what? But you can say, oh, I think you're smoldering a bit. And when they say, I don't understand, you can send them these slides. Hazel will share them out. You say, have a flick through this, or, or watch the first, 50 minutes of the session or something. This is something we can do. I've used this myself on my own, on one friend in particular. I said, bro, I think you're looking a bit, you're smoldering. And he was like, smoldering. Okay, that's not too offensive. Kind of reassesses his thing and probably went, yes, 55, yes. Oh, yes, too much of that, none of that. Oh God, I'm doing none of those things. Okay, I need to redo things, right? And thankfully, he's actually changed jobs and doing different things. Just the last point here, as leaders, you have a greater ability to change organizational norms. I once worked for a boss who used to send out emails at 5 o'clock in the morning. And I used to think, wow, that guy just gets up so early and he has these huge thoughts, types them all up. And then like a year later, after he'd moved on, his secretary said, oh no, he did those all kind of pre-programmed to send out at 5 o'clock in the morning. And then I thought, what a dick. You know what I mean? Because he was just trying to look like he was super effective. And I just thought, well, that doesn't set a good tone, right? So as the leader, you can set the tone. If you have workers, and remember going back to some of those causes around work and family, if you've got people with young children saying, hey, we're going to have a meeting 4 to 5 p.m., it's probably not the greatest thing for your team members. So just to remind you that you have the power. So a couple of points. You don't want this smoldering, but this smoldering is okay.
Oh, yeah, Tisha's got that. She likes that one.
Oh yeah, the ladies like this one. I know. Look at that. Ooh, more. So this smolder is fine, ladies and gentlemen. You can go find that smoldering, but I want you to avoid this
Dean
kind
Fraser's
of
trying
smolder,
to do the
right?
smolder now. Dean Fraser's doing his smolder.
So even though I'm not there at lunchtime, there will be a smolder off for like chocolate fish or something.
Oh, thanks, Jarrod. We really appreciate that. Smolder off at lunchtime, ladies and gentlemen.
Smolder off, yeah. And the winner will get like a big tub of that beautiful Naitahu honey or something I heard you talking about earlier.
Absolutely.
So we want to avoid that. So here's our last exercise for this part of the component. In your tables, discuss potential solutions around burnout for yourself and your team. If you personally are at the low end of burnout, congratulations, right? This is great. 1 in 5 in general across the workforce of Aotearoa is likely to be in that kind of burnt out zone. So it may be somebody in your team. So as a table, can you come up with some solutions? Maybe it's just one or two, the top 1 or 2 solutions. Reach consensus, and if we have a bit of time, maybe combine with another table and kind of come with some kind of grand solutions and then present those back to the room. So let's get that moving.